Now, this has happened to me before, and I'm sure it's happened to you. You'll be in the middle of a combat, and all of a sudden, you'll roll a recall knowledge, or maybe you're Thermitage and you're doing esoteric lore. All of a sudden, your GM comes along and is telling you a bunch of information. Now, you don't know whether you critically succeeded or critically failed, but for some reason, you just have a whole bunch of information: what the weaknesses are, what their saving throws are, maybe additional information that might help the party out in how to combat this creature. So you go to tell your whole party what's going on. Do you actually have time to do that? Well, that's something I'd like to talk about. So, my name is Don. I'm trying to be the Sly Strategist, and let's go ahead and get into it. Now, in the playing the game section of the core rulebook, and I'm sure it's going to be the same in the remaster, there is a section that is specifically talking about speaking while you're in an encounter. So, let's go ahead and put that on the screen, and then we'll read through it really quickly. So, it is titled Speaking, and it is: as long as you can act, you can also speak. You don't need to spend any type of action to speak, but because a round represents 6 seconds of time, you can usually speak at most a single sentence or so per round. Special uses of speech, such as attempting a deception skill check to lie, require spending actions and follow their own rules. All speech has the auditory trait, and if you communicate in some way other than speech, other rules might apply. For instance, using sign language is visual instead of auditory. Now, a couple little key things out of that is, once again, you don't need to spend any type of action in order to speak, so it's not even a free action. You can just speak, but you have to keep in mind what kind of information you want to send to the group. Now, this is totally open to GM interpretation, pretty much like any rule, truthfully, in most tabletop role playing games. But in general, when you are in combat, you can only give brief pieces of information. Now, it could be something along the lines of, maybe you fought an undead on another floor, and you fought a skeleton before, and this is a ghoul, and maybe the information you received is close enough where you could say, hey, this is just like that skeleton we hit on floor 2. And that conveys a large amount of information in just a few words. Or if your GM allows it, you guys could hold a whole dissertation on the topic of a skeleton or a ghoul if that's what you want to do. But that just depends on your table. However, if you were trying to make this realistic, each round basically lasts 6 seconds. So think of what information that you could pass to your fellow players in that 6 seconds of time, if the realism is really important to you. If you wanted to make something maybe a little bit more elaborate, and you could literally just role play this out, it doesn't have to be a real thing. You could say that we decided to come up with a series of hand signals, and if your GM really wanted to be difficult, they could make you do maybe a recall knowledge check on the hand signals every time you use them with a really low DC, like a DC 5. So maybe you could screw it up, which could actually be interesting now that I'm thinking about it. It might be a fun thing to implement. But speaking in combat is something you can definitely do, and it doesn't cause any actions. Just keep in mind how much time you actually have. Now, I hope you did enjoy this quick tip on speaking in combat. Basically, it boils down to how hard you want to govern this will really determine as to what you can actually do in game. I kind of do like this idea of coming up with a roll with a really low DC to see if this hand signal thing that you guys created could potentially be doable in combat. That would be kind of fun. But regardless of that, I do hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. But whatever you do, I hope you have a great day and happy adventuring. Thanks.